Hey folks, Dex here. Thanks for joining me for another Conflict 47 update. It has been a pretty busy week for Conflict 47 with the release of the Army Special Rules for all of the factions. Now, you can find all of these rules at conflict47.com, which will give you access to not only all the Army Special Rules, but also the unit lists for both upcoming models and current models, and models from the previous edition. So let's jump right into these Army Special Rules, and let's start out with the Soviet bloc. Now, I was really happy to see that they included a little bit of lore, even in the Army Special Rules, as well as with pretty much all of the unit entries. I'm not going to be going over the unit entries in this video, because I have a feeling that we're probably going to get some unit reveals at Warlord Open Day. So I'm going to wait until we have those reveals so that we can actually see what the new units look like if there are models. Our first Army Special Rule for the Soviet bloc is going to be Harmonic Resonance. At the start of every game turn, roll a d6 for each enemy unit on the table that does not have the Fearless Special Rule. On a 5+, that unit immediately receives a pin marker. This is how I like my special rules. No hoops to jump through, short, simple, and easy to understand. This is a very powerful ability that can have a big impact on the game, but it's not a guarantee. Some rounds you might get a couple pins, and others you might not get any. Next up, we have Za Stalina. Whenever a Soviet bloc infantry or artillery unit fails a morale check and would be destroyed as a result, re-roll it and apply the second result instead. If a test is passed in this way, that unit is immediately uprated to the next quality level for the rest of the game. If the unit was already a veteran, it gains +1 morale value instead. This is an updated and more powerful version of an army rule that has existed for the Soviet Union in Bolt Action version 3 for quite some time, and it's a nice change of pace to see that it has gotten a little bit of a facelift. I really like that this special rule doesn't pigeonhole you into using, for example, inexperienced troops. It applies to any infantry or artillery unit, and so even with some of your more expensive units like power armor, this rule will still apply. For our third special rule, we have Heroes of the Soviet Bloc. At the start of the game, before deployment, one non-hero, non-rift infantry unit in a Soviet bloc force may be designated Heroes of the Soviet Bloc. The chosen unit immediately gains a point of guts, and any model in the unit may spend it as if they were a hero. Furthermore, friendly units within 6 inches of the Heroes of the Soviet unit gained the Fanatics special rule. This is a massive boost. Fanatics is an amazing rule, and Guts is an amazing ability. This is definitely one of the best special rules that the Soviet bloc gets. And finally, we have Stolen Rift Tech. Once per game, when a Soviet bloc rift die is drawn randomly from the dice bag, rolled and assigned to a Soviet bloc rift unit, its owning player may swap the result with that of another rift die assigned to another unit within 6 inches, friend or foe. For example, if it rolled an exhausted result and an enemy unit was within 6 inches of that unit and had an active rift die, you may change the Soviet rift die to active and the enemy rift die to exhausted. This ability is situational, but very good. It's one of those abilities that's going to be very hard to use when you're new, but as you gain more experience with the game, I think this is going to be the type of thing that is able to shift the course of a game with a single action. Overall, I'm really happy with these abilities, and I think the Soviet bloc is going to be in a good position to be both a fun and competitive army. All right, next I want to look at another army that I've been known to play frequently, and that is the British Commonwealth. The first special rule for the British Commonwealth is going to be computational systems. British Commonwealth units with this special rule ignore the -1 to hit penalty for moving and shooting. Units must have this special rule indicated on their unit profile to benefit from it. Alright, right away, this throws up a few, let's call them warning signs for me. I'm not a big fan of when your army national rule is only tied to specific units within that army. Now, in this case, it is a very, very powerful ability, and because of that, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. However, if there are too many restrictions or not enough units in the army that can take part in this rule, it kind of just becomes dead weight. Alright, next up we have Automated Recovery. When rolling on the vehicle damage tables against British Commonwealth vehicles that are Rift units, ignore crew stunned results. The damage has no effect other than the normal pin markers inflicted for being successfully hit by a ranged weapon. Oh boy, I'm not sure how I feel about this one, to be honest, folks. Alright, the restriction that this rule only applies to Rift units is not a great thing. And also, it only applies to the crew stunned result, which is the least bad result on the table. This one's a miss to me. I'm going to be honest, this seems like the sort of thing that I'm just going to forget to apply. Alright, next up we have Keep Calm, lads. Each time a British infantry unit on a down order receives a pin marker, roll a d6. On a roll of 4+, immediately discard it. If it would have received multiple pin markers at once, roll for each separately. Alright, if I'm being honest, the first time I read this rule, I was not very impressed. I do have to say, though, after a bit more thinking about it, it's not the strongest rule ever, but it does have situational usefulness. I'd give this maybe a 3 out of 5 when it comes to the army rules. Finally, we have Superior Code Breaking. Once per game, at the start of any game turn, a British Commonwealth player may choose a die to draw from the dice bag rather than draw randomly. If the order is issued to an officer, it may not be used to initiate a snap to action ability. If there is more than one British Commonwealth player and they decide to use this ability at the same time, roll off. The winner may use this ability. The loser must wait for a future turn in order to enact their plans. This is pretty much the old intelligence officer rule from Bolt Action 3rd edition. Thankfully, that is a very, very powerful ability, and it does make up a bit for some of the other lackluster options that the British Commonwealth have. I would actually say that this is probably one of the most important rules that they have, and you're going to need to make sure to make intelligent use of it. If I'm being honest, I'm not as confident in the British Army Special Rules as I am with the Soviet ones. But let's keep going and see what other options we can find. Alright, Empire of Japan. Death before dishonor. All Empire of Japan infantry and artillery units have the Fanatic Special Rule, and automatically pass morale checks for being assaulted by enemy vehicles. Furthermore, Empire of Japan units may re-roll failed order tests when attempting an assault. Those are some very powerful abilities. It's about what we expect to see from Japan, but the addition of not having to make morale checks when you're charged by vehicles is huge in this edition of the game. Walkers are very good at stomping out infantry, and this is going to help the Japan players a lot. I should actually point out that I don't personally play Japan, but I do play against Japan quite a bit. Alright, next up we have From Nowhere. Empire of Japan infantry units on ambush may ambush charge enemies that move within 12 inches rather than the usual 6. This still counts as a surprise charge. If the ambush charge goes over rough ground or obstacles, or the ambushing unit begins in rough ground, the ambush charge distance is reduced to that of the advance rate for the assaulting unit. This is another really, really solid rule, and it goes along really well with the Japan playstyle that seems to be kind of being pushed for this edition. This rule also works really well with the next rule that we're coming to, Shadow Work. If deemed to be in cover from enemy shooting, Empire of Japan units on ambush orders improve their cover save by +1. I think you can see what I mean about these army rules encouraging a certain playstyle for Japan players. They're going to be making extensive use of the ambush order. Finally, we have Secrets of Iwo Jima. Empire of Japan Rift units attempting an outflanking maneuver may be ordered onto the table from turn 2 onwards, rather than from turn 3 onwards, entering the table from any point on the owning player's deployment zone edge or the left-right edge of the table as written down during deployment. Furthermore, Japanese Rift units attempting an outflanking maneuver do not suffer the -1 modifier on the order test for moving onto the table from reserve. This is pretty straightforward, allowing you to outflank one turn earlier and giving you a version of the old advanced communications that the Americans had in Bolt Action version 3. Taken all together, this is a solid set of rules that is going to make Japan a very fast and aggressive nation to play against. Ambushes and outflanks are going to be the name of the game, and the Japanese army is going to be probably the best in the game at those things. All right, moving on to the Axis, we have the Army Special Rule, Our Salvation. This one's pretty simple. In the turn end phase, when rolling exhausted Rift dice, an Axis army may re-roll one result. This is a solid ability that modifies the core Rift rules of the game, and getting a reroll result at the end phase is great. It's quick, easy, and applies to most of your most important units. Next up, we have Hand of the Green Volt. At the start of the game, before deployment, choose a platoon or company commander in your force. That officer immediately gains a point of Rift Mastery. This model may not be a unit from the Hero section of the Army list. Again, this is a great unit that modifies the Rift abilities. Rift Mastery is an ability that allows you to start with an additional Rift die, and you can hand that die off to other units if they're within 6 inches. Fantastic ability and great army rule. Next up, we have Schwerfield Mastery. I'm sure I mispronounced that. One veteran Axis vehicle in your force equipped with a Sheffield projector may deploy with one of its Rift dice set to surging. This is a really powerful ability, but it requires you to take a very expensive vehicle at veteran. All of the veteran vehicles with that ability are going to cost quite a bit of points. Speaking of veterans, our next ability is Hardened Veterans. Veteran Axis units, or any unit wearing powered armor, never suffers a -1 morale penalty when the leader of the squad or team has been removed as a casualty. This is situational, and I don't imagine that it's going to come up very often. Finally, we have a carryover rule, which is Buzzsaw. Axis light and medium machine guns fire 1 extra shot. For vehicle-mounted machine guns, first have the number of shots before adding the extra one. If you're familiar with Bolt Action, you're familiar with this rule. There really hasn't been any change to it, and it is a great little boost to the shot count. All in all, the Axis rules are very good, and they kind of reinforce the occult theme of the Axis army. It's really going to reward you for using more Rift dice than your opponent, and I think that's a niche that the Axis army actually fills really well. Finally, we have the United States Army rules. First up, we have Arsenal of Democracy. This one's a little long, so bear with me. United States units firing any weapon that has multiple shots may reroll 1 failed to hit roll per weapon type. For instance, a unit of 6 Fireflies, all equipped with M1X1 Thompsons, firing 12 shots in normal mode, would be able to reroll 1 die, whereas a linebacker jump walker, equipped with twin HMGs and an M21 light Tesla cannon, which was using the Tesla Arc ability, would be able to reroll the hit roll with 1 HMG die and 1 M21 light Tesla cannon die. Long story short, essentially what this rule means is that if a weapon gets more than 1 shot, you can reroll 1 die from that weapon. Following this up, we have Death from Above. Infantry units do not suffer the usual -1 morale penalty from moving onto the table from reserves when using the flight special rule. United States vehicle units do not suffer the usual -1 morale penalty for moving onto the table from reserves when using the jump special rule. If you're familiar with the modern communications rule from bolt action, it's pretty much that, except it only applies to units that are arriving on the board with the jump special rule that some people refer to as deep strike, basically from 40K. Next, we have tough as nails. They did a really good job naming these. All United States platoon and company commanders start the game with an additional point of guts. Units from the heroes section of the Army lists do not benefit from this special rule. This is an amazing ability. Like, seriously, amazing. Guts is a fantastic resource, and getting to take an extra point for free on all of your company commanders is great, especially since you can then buy an additional point. Having 2 points of guts on a company commander is amazing. And finally, we have Tesla's Gift. When a rift die is drawn from the dice bag, rolled, and assigned to a unit armed with any weapon with the Tesla Arc special rule, including because that unit has been assigned an order die and does not already have a rift die, you may re-roll the result. This gives you an additional opportunity to avoid the dreaded exhausted result when you assign a rift die to a Tesla unit. I'm going to be honest, Tesla, looking at the stats, really needs that rift die. If it's exhausted, the gun is basically dead weight. Taken together, I think that all of these Army rules combined make for a pretty good force for the US. I do think that both Tesla's Gift and Arsenal of Democracy go a long ways towards shoring up some of the weaknesses that Tesla weapons tend to have. I do worry a little bit that the US rules are kind of pigeonholing you towards specific playstyles, with Death from Above and Tesla's Gift both only applying to certain units, with other units not getting any benefit from them at all. But only time will tell if that's going to be an issue. All in all, I'm really happy with the Army Special Rules as a whole. There are a few areas that I'm a little bit concerned about, but until we get quite a bit of playtesting data with some of these other armies, we're not really going to know how things shake out. But for now, that is all I have for you. Next time we do a video, we're going to go through some of the new units that are being added to version 3, and hopefully, with Warlord Open Day coming up, we'll have maybe some sneak peeks showing what these units are going to look like. All right, folks, have a good day, and stay weird.